Hello there everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Sound and Sophia. Because before I'm making the journey in the footsteps of the philosopher René Descartes, I wanted to share with you some special thoughts of my own on a very specific phenomenon. It is a very specific phenomenon that is very well portrayed in the book The Wizard of Oz by Frank Baum. But first, I want to begin with a quote from Frank Baum in his introduction to the book.
For the time has come for a series of new wonder tales, in which the stereotyped genie, dwarf, and fairy are eliminated, together with all the horrible and blood-curdling incidents devised by their author to point a fearsome moral to each tale. Modern education includes morality. Therefore, the modern child seeks only entertainment in its wonder tales, and gladly dispenses with all disagreeable incidents. Having this in mind, the story of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was written solely to pleasure children of today. But this is interesting, because to me, excluding morality out of a story is kind of impossible.
Because even the act of writing something sort of implies that it is better to do something, like writing, rather than to do nothing. And the whole story is about a girl doing everything in her power to be able to get back home to Kansas. So excluding morality from a story is sort of impossible. Enough trash talking of the author. Now, come on children, now it's story time with Uncle Pelle. It all begins with young Dorothy wandering on the prairie of Kansas together with her dog Toto. Suddenly, a cyclone appears and picks them up and transport her and the dog to the land of Oz, where they land on top of a witch. The witch dies from their descent upon her, which upsets Dorothy. But she is told the witch was wicked, and her shoes had magical powers, so she should take them with her. Oz was a mysterious land, filled with odd and funny people. But Dorothy didn't really care much. She really just wanted to get back home to Kansas. She was told there is a great wizard at the Emerald City that is very powerful, and maybe he is able to transport her back home. So she begins to walk, and on her way she meets a scarecrow without a brain, a tin woodman without a heart, and a lion without bravery. All these people decided to travel with her Dorothy to the wizard, for maybe they too can receive what they lack from the wizard. They meet with the great Wizard of Oz, and he sure seemed great and powerful, but he refuses to grant the company's wishes unless they slay the wicked witch of the West. This seemed like an impossible task, but the company succeeded after a great many struggles. When they got back, the wizard was startled, for he believed the task he sent the company on was impossible to complete. But when the whole company went into the throne room of the wizard, Toto, the dog, knocked over a big screen, and behind it hid a small, old, bald-headed man. Everything was just a trick. He didn't possess any great powers at all, but the wizard still had some tricks up his sleeves. He built a big balloon that he and Dorothy could fly all the way back to Kansas. But disaster. Dorothy missed the balloon's ascent. She figured her last chance to get back home was to meet with the good witch of the South. After a long travel south, she met the good witch of the South, and she told her that the way back home had been with Dorothy all along. because the silver shoes she had received from the wicked witch on her first day in Oz was magical. And so, after 3 clacks of the silver shoes, she was back home in Kansas. The end. Okay, so I want to continue with another personal story of mine. A couple of years ago, I was playing violin in an amateur orchestra, and I was told that we were going to play a big New Year's Eve concert at the concert hall in town. And I was super excited. Having attended the concert hall before with various artists, I was super excited that I was going to sit at the very same stage as they had done, even if it was just playing second violin in an amateur orchestra.
And a thought struck me that, oh, everything looks so glamorous and nice on stage. I wonder how the backstage looks like. And suddenly, the idea of peeking behind the curtain to the backstage area became even more exciting than being on stage, because I knew how that would look like, but I had no idea of how the backstage looked like.
And then the day of the concert came, and I was super excited, running behind the scene to watch this magical backstage area, and I just could not have been more disappointed. It was just a dull, gray conference room. Well, yeah, to the size they had 2 smaller rooms with lit mirrors where you could put on makeup, but overall, really boring. I almost wished that I had never seen it, because the magic of the unknown was gone.
Toto jumped away from him in alarm and tipped over the screen that stood in a corner. As it fell with a crash, they looked that way, and the next moment, all of them were filled with wonder, for they saw, standing in just the spot screen had hidden, a little old man with a bald head and a wrinkled face, who seemed to be as much surprised as they were. The Tin Woodman raised his axe, rushed towards the little man, and cried out, "Who are you?" I am Oz, the great and terrible," said the little man. And this is the core of the whole problem that I want to highlight. The company of Dorothy and her friends believed that the wizard possessed unbelievable magical powers. But in the end, it was all a humbug. There was no magic whatsoever.
This phenomenon of peeking behind the curtain, thus removing the magic of the unknown, is very present in our scientific age. Because if you think about it, before the days of science, the whole world was filled with magic. People believed in trolls, gnomes and witches and various gods in order to explain certain phenomena, such as thunder, explained with Thor's hammer.
And then along came science, explaining everything, stripping nature from her curtain of mystery, and the ordinary magic of the world is gone.
I am not anti-science. I am just very interested about this very specific phenomena. And I also realized another aspect of it, which is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Let me elaborate a little bit.
According to the paper Unskilled and Unaware of It, published in 2009 by David Dunning and Justin Kruger, they showed that people very often who lacks a certain skill set are unaware of their own incompetence.
What is so interesting about this paper is that it shows that being unskilled at a certain task and believing one is above average in the same field is highly correlated. I'll put up a couple of graphs here to illuminate the effect.
We argue that when people are incompetent in the strategies they adopt to achieve success and satisfaction, they suffer a dual burden. Not only do they reach erroneous conclusions and make unfortunate choices, but their incompetence robs them of the ability to realize it.
I would like to put your attention on one of these tests we did during the study. After the test, the unskilled participants received training and a second chance. And the interesting part is that after the training, the unskilled participants realize their own incompetence. So Dunning-Kruger stumbled upon a paradox, because the way of making someone realize their own incompetence is by making them more competent.
And here we are back at the very same phenomenon in question, and why I believe it is important. Because in our own personal development as humans, we constantly realize how incompetent we have been. When we improve our metacognitive ability, it always allows us to peek behind the curtain and realize our own incompetence, thus removing the magic of one's own greatness.
And here I would like to argue that this is the very same phenomenon as in The Wizard of Oz. If I take myself as an example, when I started to play piano at an early age, after only a couple of months of practicing, I believed that I was an expert at the subject. But after the years, I realized how awful my playing really was. And the interesting thing is that probably if I had had the metacognitive ability to realize my own incompetence early on, thus knowing how long it would take for me to become an expert, I might have quit early on.
This is one of the reasons I think why learning violin at an early stage in life is important. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but listening to a beginner violinist is like carving your own eyes out with a spoon.
What are you talking about?
Oh, no, nothing. Keep on practicing, please.
Thank you.
But children at an early stage usually don't have the fine-tuned sense of hearing when something is out of key, which will allow them to keep on practicing, and they will realize from time to time how out of key their playing really is, thus enabling them to finally play in tune. But adults usually have at least a basic sense of hearing when something is out of tune. So beginning to practice violin when one is 30 is just painful, because you can see how far the journey is only to be able to play in tune, which usually results in quitting.
So I believe that realizing your own incompetence in small steps is actually paramount in furthering your own development. Because believing that the road will take 3 months is way better than knowing it will take 10 years. There you have it, folks. We reached the end. What do you guys think about this concept? Am I way off here? Or is there something to it? I would really like to hear. Please leave a comment down below if you're interested. And also, make sure to subscribe if you liked this episode. There is way more to come. And as always, everybody, take care until the next one.